Life Through My Eyes, an addict story. It is my story. My name is Anthony Vega, and I would like to share this with you. The introduction. I thought it was possible to get through life without help. I could not have been more wrong. Being molested, then turning to drugs and alcohol was not the answer. It was not until I asked for help that I could truly start to heal. My story is about pain, sorrow, hope, love, and happiness. Telling my story has helped me. Maybe it could help you. The acknowledgement. I have to thank God first and foremost. I want to thank my parents for putting up with me and also not giving up on me. I thank all the counselors and rehabs, even though it took me several tries. You all did your best. This is for everyone who has any doubt about living without drugs or alcohol. It is possible. My life started on a cold afternoon in February 1960. I was born to a Portuguese father and an Italian mother. It was New Haven, Connecticut, where I would start my journey. Now, the 60s were a tough time in this city. There was some racial tension coming. Not my family. We loved everyone. In 1965, I was molested. I'm not going to go into detail, but it had a catastrophic effect on a huge part of my life. I remember my parents were at work, and I was running around the house like Superman in my makeshift cape. I ran the same course every day, around the living room, down the hall, and out the storm door. This one day, I missed the door handle and went right through the glass door. My sister, who was babysitting me, got real nervous. She grabbed a box of Band-Aids and proceeded to patch me up. I had Band-Aids from head to toe. I thought my parents were going to be mad, but they were just glad I was okay. In 1966, we moved to Hamden, Connecticut. My grandfather, he bought a two-family house. So him and my grandmother lived on the second floor, and we lived on the first floor. I remember it being really hot. After all, it was August. While we were moving in, the neighbor came over and introduced himself. His name was Nick. He was only a year older than me. We got to be really good friends. I started grammar school the next month. Come to find out, there were a lot of kids my age in the neighborhood. We all became great friends. Throughout the years, we had some great times and we had some crazy times. It was Father's Day, 1971. There were 11 of us playing on some private property up the street from my house. All of a sudden, police flying in from every angle. We were all taken down to the police station for destroying the private property. It was my first encounter with the police, but definitely not my last. There were so many of us that they had to fit us into 3 different cop cars. So here we are, my cousin and I, waiting for our fathers to arrive. The police trying to put the fear of God into us. A couple of the older boys were tough and talking back. Looking back, I guess it was not their first time. Finally, here comes my father and uncle. They were not happy, to say the least. They signed us out and off we went. My dad turned to me in the car, and said, on Father's Day, I knew I was in trouble. I did not say a word the rest of the way home. When we got back to the house, my mom was furious. My dad said, go to your room for the rest of the night. I went to my room and did not come out until morning. When I got up for school, my father had already left for work. Thank God. I got dressed, walked around the block, and met my friends to walk to school. We were all grounded except for school, of course. A few weeks passed and school was over. Back to normal for the most part. One weekend, my sister and her boyfriend took me to a drive-in movie. I do not remember what the movie was, but I do remember the bottle of wine. Her boyfriend said, here, take a couple of sips. I hesitated at first and wound up drinking the whole quart. It made me feel really good. I loved it. The next morning, or should I say afternoon, my mom was calling me to get up. I was having a hard time. My dad came in and said he has a hangover. Let him sleep it off. I do not remember if my sister got in trouble or not, but I did not hear another word about it. After that, every chance I would get, I would take a beer or some liquor from my dad's closet. I was still having nightmares about what happened to me. The alcohol would make them go away. So I thought. It worked for a while, then they started to come back. Now I discovered cigarettes and marijuana. And boy, did I love them both. I worked on a farm at 11 years old to make a few dollars. My parents were both very hardworking people. My dad sometimes had to work 2 full-time jobs. So us kids tried to pull our own weight. After the farm job, I got myself a paper route. It was the morning paper back then, so I had to get up really early during school. Sometimes my mom would drive me around my route. As I look back, I know both of my parents were awesome. My cousin and I joined the Winchester Rifle Range. We were pretty good. I won all sorts of medals, marksman, sharpshooter, and other various medals for different positions. We were loving the range, and one day we decided to go target shooting in the woods behind the restaurant. It was called Sanford Barn in Hamden, Connecticut. Well, come to find out, we were shooting through the targets, and the bullets were hitting the houses about a half a mile away. Next thing I know, we were surrounded by the police, and they were yelling, "Put your weapon down, turn around." My cousin had the rifle at this point, and when he turned around and was pointing at the police, I thought they were going to shoot him, I swear. I yelled, "Throw down the gun," and he did. The police came running over. We still didn't know what we did wrong. They came over, grabbed the rifle, and asked if we had any more ammo. Me? I came prepared. I had 300 rounds on me, and the cop asked if I was going to war. I looked at him. I said, "I'm only 14. So here we go, our second trip to the police station. This time we got 4 years probation and kicked out of the Winchester Rifle Club. It was a sad day. I really loved to shoot, and I was damn good at it. Here is where my addiction starts to take off. I'm in junior high school, drinking and smoking weed, and I find pills, all kinds of pills. Got uppers, downers, hallucinogenics. I thought I was in heaven, and I would take something different every day. I would mix them and really feel wild and crazy. There's not a day that goes by that I do not take some kind of drug. At this time, I do not see a problem with what I am doing. It all seems perfectly normal to me. During junior high school, there was a riot at the high school. A few of us were there. We skipped school and went. It was really bad, and a lot of people got hurt. Some were arrested, and some wound up in the hospital with serious injuries. That is definitely one day I will never forget for as long as I live. It was the 70s. Racial tension was very high. Still coming from the 60s, I guess. The following fall, I started high school. Right before it started, my cousin and I were coming back from Connecticut Dragway. I had just blown the engine. Excuse me. My brother had just blown the engine in his 1970 Camaro. One of the races. So my cousin and I were racing home on the highway, and we got pulled over. The officer came over to me first and asked if I knew the person in the other car. Of course, I said no. So he gave me a ticket for doing 90 in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. Oops. When we got back to my house, I asked my cousin what he told the officer. He said, "I told him you were my cousin." Shaking my head, I said, "Why would you tell him you knew me? They could have gotten us for drag racing or reckless endangerment or something." He looked at me and said, "Wow, you're right. I didn't think of that." Oh, well, high school didn't even start yet, and we have to take a day off to go to court. Our parents were not happy again. We went to court and wound up paying a substantial fine, but we did not lose our license. Another lesson learned, or was it? Although high school, all through high school, working after school, partying every night, still not thinking I have a problem. I remember right around the middle of junior year, my cousin was expelled from school for good. So he went to work full time. I was still going through the motions. Now, school came easy for me, not so much for my cousin. We were really close, so I did not like the idea of finishing school without him around. You see, me and him were only 2 days apart. He was 2 days older than me. We were like brothers. Finished out that year. Now I am a senior. Right before graduation, I was having a little bit of a problem with a person of color. We were both called in the principal's office and told if we fought, we would both be expelled and not graduate. They actually left us in a room by ourselves to talk it over. So I said to him, "I came this far. I need to graduate. If we see each other on the outside, it is on. But in school, we do not make a move." He looked at me and agreed. I believe because I had so many people behind me, and so did he, that the principals thought there may be another riot. And to this day, I have not seen him. That was 42 years ago. Another thing happened before graduation. My girl cousin was grabbed by some punk who thought he could do anything he wanted. So a friend, my cousin, and I ran into this guy in the lobby in front of the principal's office. I seen him first. I went up and I whacked him in the mouth. My cousin jumped on him and so did my friend. I remember having him in a headlock and ramming his head into the door of the main office. All of a sudden, the bell rang and people were everywhere, including teachers who had heard all the noise. My friend and my cousin ran. I just stood there, and everyone ran right by me. They wound up getting suspended, and I did not. This is one of the reasons my cousin was expelled. Finally, graduation day comes. We go party up at West Rock. After the party, 4 of us jump in a 1968 Camaro, my cousin's car. We proceed to drive to Daytona Beach, Florida. We get there, my cousin pulls up into the hotel. We go grab 2 rooms and decide we're going to rent motorcycles to ride on the beach. Well, he parks on the sidewalk, opens his door, car comes by and smashes into it. Glass flying all over the place, doors all bent up. It was his fault, the police said. Here is a ticket for, get this, opening your door into traffic. I swear they made this shit up. 1978, things were a lot different back then. Life was simple but crazier back at that time. The 70s was pretty nuts growing up. We took care of our differences with our fists, and most of the time we were friends the next day. Anyway, here we are in Daytona Beach. We went out to dinner that night. We got separated. I woke up the next morning in bed, covered in beach sand. I have no idea what happened. No motorcycles. So we drove the car onto the beach. We got stuck in the sand, and the car engine compartment caught on fire. It turned out that it was electrical. All I had was my favorite t-shirt. I took it off and put out the fire. I was pretty good with cars back then, so I was able to fix it in a couple of hours. And it was a good thing because the tide was coming in. We stayed a few more days, and then it was time to go back home. We made it home in 17 hours flat. That was a pretty good time. On the way home, I was thirsty. I reached underneath the seat. Lo and behold, a pint of Jack Daniels. That was my favorite back then. It was about 130 degrees. I was gasping for air, but that did not stop me. I drank the whole pint. I asked. No one else wanted any. So we make it back home. Time to get to work. School and vacation are over. I got a job as a mechanic at Midas Muffler. It did not last long because I would not sell people things they did not need. We worked on commission. I remember I had a 71 Dodge Challenger. One day while driving home, the drive went in the transmission. So I had to drive all the way home in reverse. It was tough, but I did it. I drove on the right side of the road, only backwards. I bought another car and I got another job. This was picking orders and loading trucks at a greenhouse in Cheshire. My buddy Mike got me the job. That lasted a little while until my dad got me a job with a union, the Teamsters. It was factory work that lasted about a year. During that time, we went on strike. We were picking in and a truck driver tried to run us over and break the picket line. You don't do that to Teamsters in the 70s. We waited for him to come out. We followed him onto the highway. They still had tolls then. When he got to the tolls, we got out and we destroyed his truck. A couple of us got arrested. I got away with a couple other guys, and the union wound up bombing the guys out. It was a night shift I was working at that time. After a year, I had 2 weeks vacation. So I decided to go to Santa Monica, California, and meet a couple of friends of mine that had moved out there. And, excuse me. I wanted there for a 2-week vacation. I wound up staying about 2.5 months. I sold my motorcycle. I quit my job. My dad was not happy. I was going to stay in Cali, but things did not work out, so I came back to Connecticut. This is about the time I found heroin. I remember the first time I did it, it made me feel so good. I loved it. This was the beginning of the end. I was a weekend warrior for quite a while. I would work all week. Come Friday, I would get trashed. I got in some fights at the bars. I didn't remember most of them. I would just react. I would go from being mellow happy to total rage. This is the way I was for a good part of my life. This anger inside came from being molested. I know this now, but I didn't know it then. I wanted to keep that feeling I felt getting high. My use turned into a habit. At the peak of my addiction, I was doing about 30 bags of heroin a day. It took a while to build this tolerance, but it got there. In my early 20s, I had to work 2 full-time jobs to support my habit. As I sit here and think about this time in my life, I really do not know how I made it through. I was doing all this heroin, plus I was drinking, smashing up cars left and right. I walked away from every accident, and there were many. After a time, I started to sell heroin, other drugs to support my habit. You know, my use of drugs always wound up costing me a lot more than just money. It cost me cars, relationships, and even my freedom. There were times when even my family did not want to know me, and I do not blame them. I was wild and crazy and definitely unpredictable. It was like a bomb waiting to go off. That was me. I got a job at the USPS, United States Postal Service. Needless to say, I lost that job because of my drinking and drugging. I actually would have been retired by now if I did not screw it up. I remember about a year after I got fired, the union called me in and said, go to this doctor, give a clean urine, and we can get your job back with a year back pay. I figured I was probably around $40,000 to $45,000. I could not even give a clean urine, so I never got the job back. What a fool I was. But the drugs had complete control over me. So I lose the job, and a couple of months later, I lose my girlfriend of 12 years due to my addiction, of course. Here I am, single, strung out, habit getting bigger and bigger. I'm up to 30 bags in a single day, plus I'm doing cocaine, Xanax, alcohol. I should have been dead with all these drugs in my system every day. Somehow I survived. I had some close calls, but I survived. Okay, now it's getting harder and harder to support my habit. I went from working second shift at the post office and installing above ground pools during the day, making a lot of money, to making peanuts. I had tried all the outpatient programs. I was on methadone, naltrexone, buprenorphine, and even something they called LAM back then. Levoacetylmethadol, I don't know, a mouthful, I know. Nothing worked, but mostly because I wasn't ready. Those are just substitutes anyway. If you truly want to be clean and sober, you have to detox your body from everything. When I was on these programs, it was like a ball and chain around my ankle. You cannot go anywhere. You have to get permission. You have to get bottles to go, or you have to go to a clinic on you wherever you're going. You got certain hours. If you miss it, you don't get medicated. It's a pain in the neck. My habit is exceeding my income, and I start selling guns, drugs, giving escorts rides and protection to make a buck. When I was a little younger, I was running numbers for 3 of them bookies. I remember one night I got pulled over and had 2 shopping bags, one full of numbers and one full of cash. I really thought I was busted, but the police officer never saw a thing. I don't know how. I wasn't hiding. It was right on the back seat of my car. So anyway, at one point I was betting a lot and got in over my head. I believe they gave me extra time to pay because I was still doing the collection and was never short. Eventually, the drug abuse got in the way and I was asked to leave. I know why. It was only a matter of time before I got arrested. They were very smart gentlemen. Jobless again, I started turning to burglary. Of course, I thought I was the best there ever was. I did many and got caught for a few. Arrested for burglary, forgery, possession, failure to appear, robbery, violation of probation. 13 arrests, 24 charges, 12 felonies. It's one hell of a record. I'm not proud of it. I was actually robbing crack dealers. A friend and I, we would take turns. One would drive, the other would get out, walk up to the dealer, punch him in the face, take his drugs and his money. Then we'd run back and jump through the window of the car, and the other guy would take off. We would proceed to smoke the crack and then go spend the cash on heroin. I remember early one morning sitting in the car. We had just copped some heroin, and there was a knock on my window. I rolled down the window and asked, could I help you? He said, you didn't want to rob me last night. I said, and? He said, if I had my gun, I would shoot you. I said, do you got your gun? He said, no. I said, get the hell out of here. And I rolled the window back up and proceeded to get high. I mean, if he had his gun, I would have never even heard it coming. I would have been dead. Another time, I go to see a guy that I always go to get my drugs from. He puts a gun to my forehead. He wanted my money. I told him to pull the trigger and do me a favor. I looked him dead in the eye. He looked at me for a second, then he took the gun down and let me go about my business. I guess he knew I was serious, and I was very, very serious. Now, I ran the streets for a lot of years. I wasn't afraid to die, so I had no fear at all. All right, so now we're up to the second week of December, 1998. I got arrested on a Friday late morning. I know I missed the court ride, so I'd be locked up all weekend. My bail was high. My parents had enough of me. By nightfall, I am sick as a dog. Passing blood in stool, puking blood. They finally transported me to the hospital. They run some tests and they said there's nothing wrong with me. I'm like, really? What is all this blood? They did not have an answer. Back to the jail cell. What I forgot to mention, though, was while I was waiting for the results of the test, they had me handcuffed to a water pipe in the closet of the hospital. All right? That was nice of them, huh? I wasn't doing anything wrong. All I wanted to do was see why I was passing blood. But that's the way they treat you like a dog back then. We go back to the jail and they put me in a cell in a Johnny coat. There's someone else with me. The sheriffs leave and I proceed to make a noose out of my apparel. I turn to my cellmate and I say, if you call anyone, I will kill you. I know he believed me, because what did I have to lose? Well, I was trying to kill myself anyway. Here I am, hanging from the bars, feeling myself fading. I felt the peace and serenity I have never felt before. It was amazing. I wanted to keep going wherever it was that I was headed. All of a sudden, it felt like someone pushed me from behind and the rope broke. I was back gasping for air. I looked at my cellmate and asked what happened. He said his words, not mine. You were like a fish out of water, flopping all over the place. I never felt any of that. So I believe I was dead for that brief moment in time. I fell asleep. A day and a half later, I was in court. The judge reduced my bond to a promise to appear. I went to my parents' house, but of course I had to get high. A couple of weeks later was what would be the last Christmas I would spend with my parents. The day after Christmas, I decided to go into detox. This wound up being the last detox I would need. Remember, at the end of the detox, I had state insurance, and they're telling me that it was only good for 3 days, so they wanted to kick me out. This is on New Year's Eve, no less. I said, if I walk out that door, I will go down the street and get high. I know me. I'm in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I will go down the street and get high. They were insisting that I had to leave. One of the counselors overheard my argument and came over to me and asked, what is the problem? I said, if I leave, I will go get high. It is New Year's Eve. I cannot go out that door and wait for Monday to go to the next program. I will not make it there. He went in and fought for me. Next thing I know, I'm there until Monday and the other program is picking me up. So I do not have a chance to go get high. That particular moment in time saved my life. Although I cannot remember his name, he was a Vietnam veteran who dressed like a woman. This man saved me. He knew how bad I needed to get clean, and he knew I was in the exact frame of mind that I needed to accomplish this. Monday comes, I go to Rushford in Middletown, Connecticut. This was a short 14-day program which would lead me to another men's program. But in this program is where I had a spiritual awakening. One night I was feeling bad, physically and mentally. I decided to get down on my knees and ask for God's help. Something I have never done before in my life. I asked him to take away my pain. My thoughts are getting high, and I did not think I was going to make it through the night without leaving to go get high. After praying, I lied down on the bed. My mind was racing a million miles an hour. All of a sudden, I started getting these rushes through my body. I had no idea what was happening. It felt like it lasted forever. Tears rolling down my face. The pain was leaving my body. So I said, God, when I was trying to hang myself, who pushed me back into life? Was it you? I didn't feel any different. I asked if it was my brother Chucky who passed away before I was even born. These rushes going through me were even more intense than before. I had my answer. You know, you talk to some people and they look at you like you're crazy. Others say that was the Holy Ghost. This is what I believe. I fell asleep the next morning. I woke up, no more pain. My mind was so clear, it was unbelievable. I knew from that day on, I would never have to get high again. Stay tuned for the second part to follow.